The Grand Convocation Hall stretched across 3 kilometers of polished stone and living crystal. Light from a dozen captured stars flowed through the domed ceiling, casting everything in shades of gold and violet. Representatives from 400 species filled the rising seats, their bodies ranging from clouds of sentient gas to beings of pure crystalline thought. This was the heart of galactic civilization. This was where the powerful decided the fate of the weak. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked across the central floor with her head held high. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair and calm brown eyes that had seen too much to be impressed by spectacle. Behind her walked her team of 6 diplomats, all of them dressed in simple dark suits. They looked small against the vastness of the hall. They looked fragile among beings who could live for 10,000 years. The supreme arbiter of the council, a Vethrani named Causenthal, watched the humans approach with all 6 of his eyes. His body resembled a great serpent wrapped around the throne of light, scales shimmering with colors that had no names in human languages. He had ruled the council for 800 years. He had seen species rise and fall like waves against stone. "The representatives of Earth may approach," he announced, his voice carried by technology that made it echo in every mind present. Elena stopped at the designated circle on the floor. The stone beneath her feet glowed faintly, scanning her biology, her technology, her threat level. She knew what it would find. Humans were not impressive by galactic standards. "We gather today for the classification of species 4479 Gamma, known locally as humanity," Causenthal continued. "The Taxonomy Committee has completed its assessment. High taxonomist Rethvaner will present the findings." A creature of living metal flowed down from the upper seats. Rethvaner was Kethrani, a species that had abandoned flesh 3 million years ago. Her form shifted constantly, beautiful and unsettling. "The species known as humanity has been evaluated across all standard metrics," Rethvaner announced. "Lifespan, average 80 years, maximum 120. Classification, extremely brief. Telepathic capacity, none detected. Classification, psychically null. Technological development, achieved faster than light travel 73 years ago, currently expanding through 17 star systems. Classification, juvenile spacefaring." Elena listened without expression. She had expected this. Physical resilience, moderate. Cognitive capacity, above average but not exceptional. Emotional regulation, poor, marked by extreme volatility and irrational attachment behaviors. Social structure, fragmented, historically prone to internal conflict. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Several species shifted in their seats, looking down at the humans with what might have been pity or contempt. "Based on comprehensive analysis," Rethvaner concluded, "the Taxonomy Committee recommends humanity be designated as a lesser species under Article 7 of the Galactic Charter." The words hung in the air. Lesser species. It was the lowest classification possible for a spacefaring race. It meant no voting rights in council matters, no territorial claims beyond their home system, no protection under galactic law. They would exist at the mercy of greater powers. Causenthal raised one massive claw. "The council will now vote. All in favor of the lesser designation?" Lights flickered across the hall as representatives registered their votes. Elena watched the count climb. 312 in favor, 87 opposed, the rest abstaining. "The motion carries," Causenthal announced. "Humanity is hereby classified as a lesser species, effective immediately. Their current territorial holdings are subject to review. Their trade agreements are suspended pending renegotiation under appropriate terms." Elena felt her team tense behind her. She understood their anger. Everything they had built, everything they had worked for, dismissed with a vote. declared lesser by beings who had never walked on Earth, never seen a human child laugh, never watched a human artist create beauty from nothing. But she had prepared for this moment. They all had. The human delegation may respond, Cossenthal said, and there was something almost mocking in his tone. He expected begging. He expected rage. Elena stepped forward. Her voice was steady and clear. "We thank the Council for this clarity," she said. "We have one question before we accept this designation." A ripple of surprise moved through the hall. "Accept? Speak," Cossenthal allowed. "Is this decision final and binding under your charter? Once made, it cannot be reversed by petition or appeal." The Supreme Arbiter's eyes narrowed. The taxonomy of sentience has stood for 11 million years. Its decisions are permanent unless the classified species demonstrates significant evolutionary change. This typically requires a minimum of 100,000 years. "I understand," Elena said. "Then we accept your classification." Silence filled the hall. This was not how lesser species responded. They fought. They pleaded. They offered desperate bargains. They did not simply accept. "We will respond accordingly," Elena continued. "All human operations in Council space will be adjusted to reflect our new status. We are grateful for the Council's guidance in helping us understand our proper place." She bowed, a gesture of respect that somehow felt like something else entirely. Then she turned and walked toward the exit, her team falling into step behind her. From the high seats, an ancient voice spoke. "Wait," Elena paused. She looked up at the section reserved for the eldest species, those who had seen galaxies born and die. A Vorathi sat there, his body like a mountain of moss-covered stone, eyes that glowed with the light of dying suns. "You accept too easily, human," the Vorathi said. His name was Then Vast, and he was older than Earth itself. "I have seen this before. Once, only once. What happened?" Someone called from the crowd. Then Vast was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with memory. "They accepted. They withdrew. They prepared. And when they returned, nothing could stand against them. We called them the Quiet Ones. We do not speak of what they became." Nervous laughter scattered through the hall. The Quiet Ones were a myth, a story told to frighten young species. No one believed they had actually existed. Elena looked up at the ancient Vorathi. Their eyes met across the vast distance. She did not smile, did not threaten, did not show any emotion at all. "We are not the Quiet Ones," she said simply. "We are human. That will be enough." She walked out of the hall. The doors closed behind her with a sound like thunder. In the corridor beyond, her team surrounded her. Their faces showed the strain of maintaining composure. "That's it then," said David Chun, her deputy. "Decades of work. Everything we built." "No," Elena said. "Everything we pretended to build. The real work was always happening elsewhere." She pulled out a communication device and entered a code that only 12 people in the universe knew. "This is Vasquez," she said. "Classification confirmed as expected. Begin protocol sunrise." A voice responded, calm and professional. "Understood, Ambassador. Sunrise is active. All assets moving to secondary positions. Estimated completion, 18 months. Elena ended the call. She looked at her team, and for the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. "They gave us exactly what we needed," she said. "A reason to stop pretending. A reason to show them what we really are." David frowned. "What are we, really?" Elena started walking toward their ship. "Patient," she said. "We are very, very patient. And we have been preparing for this day since before they knew we existed." Back in the Grand Convocation Hall, the council moved on to other business. The human matter was settled, already being forgotten. A lesser species, nothing more. They would fade into obscurity like so many before them. Only Thin Vast remained troubled. He had lived for 9 billion years. He had seen empires rise and fall, had watched species ascend to godhood and others crumble to dust. He knew the signs of danger. And in the human ambassador's eyes, he had seen something that chilled even his ancient heart. He had seen certainty, the absolute, unshakable certainty of someone who knows exactly what is coming. He tried to warn the council. He filed formal objections, requested additional surveillance, demanded a review of the classification. They ignored him. They called him paranoid, said his age had finally caught up with him. So Thin Vast did the only thing he could. He watched. He waited. And he wondered what humanity was building in the spaces between the stars, in the places no one else thought to look. He wondered if the galaxy would survive the answer. 3 months later, he would begin to find out. And by then, it would already be too late to change anything. The humans had accepted their place. Now they would make the galaxy accept what that truly meant. 3 months passed. The galaxy continued to spin. Trade flowed along ancient routes. Wars flickered and died in distant sectors. The council governed as it always had, secure in its power, confident in its wisdom. And humanity began to disappear. It started slowly, so slowly that no one noticed at first. A shipping company closed its offices on Nexus Prime. A research partnership ended quietly on the Rithani homeworld. Human engineers working on a major construction project finished their contracts and did not renew them. Merchant Guildmaster Vostrellen was the first to raise concerns. He was Kethrani, like the High Taxonomist, but he dealt in commerce rather than classification. His living metal body stood in the council's economic chamber, displaying charts and figures that made no sense. Human trade volume has decreased by 47% in 90 days, he reported. They are withdrawing from every major market in council space. Let them withdraw, said Councillor Rethsoma, a massive insectoid being with compound eyes that glittered like black diamonds. They are a lesser species. Their trade was insignificant. With respect, Councillor, it was not. Vostrellen shifted his display. Human merchants specialized in goods that other species found unprofitable to produce. Small batch pharmaceuticals, precision components for older technology, agricultural supplements for colony worlds, items too minor for major producers to bother with. Then other species will fill the gap. That is the problem, Councillor. No one else produces these items. The profit margins were too small. Only humans, with their short lifespans and strange urgency, found them worth pursuing. The chamber fell silent. Short-lived species often pursued opportunities that longer-lived races ignored. A 10-year return on investment meant nothing to a being who would live for millennia. How serious is this? Asked another councillor. Vostrellen hesitated. The Rithani Consortium has already experienced shortages of a pharmaceutical enzyme that prevents neural decay in their elder population. Without human suppliers, they will need to develop their own production capability. Estimated time to achieve this: 15 years. 15 years? Councillor Rethsoma's wings buzzed with agitation. The Rithani declared humans lesser most vocally. They led the vote against them. Yes, Vostrellen said. And now they will watch their elders suffer for 15 years while they learn to make what humans provided for the cost of asking. News of the shortages spread. The Rithani demanded that humanity resume trade immediately. They sent diplomatic missions to Earth, to the human colonies, to every human outpost they could find. Ambassador Vasquez met them with perfect politeness. We would love to help, she said, her expression sincere. But we are a lesser species. Surely the Great Rethinic Consortium cannot depend on beings as primitive as ourselves for something so important. It would be inappropriate for us to involve ourselves in matters above our station. This is absurd, the Rethani envoy sputtered. We are offering payment. Premium rates. Name your price. It is not about price. The Council has determined that we lack the capacity for complex trade arrangements. We must accept their wisdom. We are simply not advanced enough to help you. The envoy left in a rage. Elena watched him go with no expression on her face. Inside, she felt something she could not quite name. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Something quieter. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. As the trade crisis deepened, another problem emerged. Human ships had begun charting new routes through regions of space that other species avoided. The Vethrani called these areas the dead zones, places where gravitational anomalies and radiation storms made travel dangerous and unprofitable. But humans flew through them without difficulty. How are they doing this? Demanded Supreme Arbiter Kossenthal. Intelligence reports filled the screens before him. Human vessels, thousands of them, moving through the dead zones as easily as sailing calm waters. Their ships are different, his intelligence chief reported. Smaller, more maneuverable, designed for conditions we consider hazardous. They appear to have been building these vessels for decades. Decades? Before they even contacted us? Yes, Supreme Arbiter. Long before. Kossenthal felt cold despite the warmth of his throne. Humans had achieved faster-than-light travel 73 years ago. They had contacted the Council only 40 years ago. What had they been doing in those 33 years of silence? There is more, the intelligence chief continued. We have detected construction activity at the edges of mapped space. Massive construction. Our surveillance drones have captured images. The screen changed. Kossenthal's 6 eyes widened. Ships. Thousands upon thousands of ships, clustered around structures that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. Stations the size of moons. Defense platforms bristling with weapons that did not match any known design. A network of installations spanning at least 12 star systems. What is this? Kossenthal whispered. We do not know, Supreme Arbiter. Our drones were detected and destroyed before they could gather more information. But our analysts estimate that the construction has been ongoing for at least 50 years. 50 years. Humans have been building this since before they announced themselves to the galaxy. While they played the role of eager newcomers, while they submitted to classification and traded in minor goods, they had been preparing for something else entirely. Summon the human ambassador, Kossenthal ordered. Immediately. Elena Vasquez arrived 3 days later. She walked into the council chamber with the same calm expression she had worn on the day of classification. The same simple suit. The same steady eyes. But something had changed. The council members could feel it. She no longer looked small to them. She looked like someone who had been pretending to be small and had finally stopped. Ambassador Vasquez, Kossenthal began, his voice tight with controlled anger. Explain what your people are building in the dead zones. Elena tilted her head. We are a lesser species, Supreme Arbiter. Surely anything we build cannot be of concern to the Great Council. Do not play games with me. We have seen your installations. Your ships. Your weapons. Ah. Elena nodded. You sent drones into our territory without permission. That was unwise. But since you ask, I will explain. She raised her hand, and a holographic display materialized above her palm. Technology the Council did not recognize. The display showed a map of the galaxy with human installations marked in blue. What you have seen is the Bastion network, Elena said. 12 star systems, fully developed, self-sustaining, defended, capable of supporting the entire human population indefinitely. The council stared at the display in silence. We began construction 52 years ago, Alina continued. When we first achieved faster-than-light travel, we did not announce ourselves. We listened. We watched. We studied your civilization, your politics, your classification system. You spied on us, Soma accused. We learned about you. There's a difference. Elena's voice remained calm. We saw how you treated species you deemed lesser. We saw the pattern. New species arrive with hope. They are classified. Those deemed worthy are welcomed. Those deemed unworthy are exploited, marginalized, eventually forgotten. We knew which category we would fall into. Then why contact us at all? Causenthal demanded. Elena's expression softened, just slightly. Because we hoped we were wrong. We hoped that if we approached you with goodwill, if we contributed to your civilization, if we proved our worth through action rather than biology, you might see us differently. She paused. The chamber was utterly silent. We gave you 40 years to prove us wrong. You did not. The display shifted, showing the scale of human capability. Ships, weapons, technology that combined galactic designs with innovations the Council had never imagined. So now we are leaving, Elena said. The Bastion network is complete. We do not need your trade. We do not need your protection. We do not need anything from beings who look at us and see only our limitations. This is a threat, Causenthal said. No, Supreme Arbiter. This is an exit. Elena lowered her hand and the display vanished. You declared us lesser. We have simply prepared to live as if that were true, needing nothing from those who hold us in contempt. From the upper seats, the ancient voice of Themvast rumbled through the chamber. You are not leaving. You are showing us what we will lose. Elena looked up at the old Varathi. Something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. Understanding. Yes, she admitted. We are. She turned and walked toward the door. No one moved to stop her. No one knew what to say. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. The Council has 1 year to reconsider its decision. After that, humanity will seal its borders permanently. We will not trade with you. We will not speak with you. We will exist as if you do not, because that is what you taught us to want. She smiled, and it was the saddest expression any of them had ever seen. We only wanted to be equals. You could not even imagine that. Now you will learn what you have lost. The door closed behind her. The Council sat in stunned silence, surrounded by their ancient power and their ageless certainty, and wondered for the first time if they had made a terrible mistake. In the dead zones, human ships continued their work. The Bastion network grew stronger every day, and the clock began to tick. 1 year. The Council had 1 year to change everything. Most of them did not believe they needed to. They would learn the emergency session began at midnight, Galactic Standard Time. Every seat in the Grand Convocation Hall was filled. Representatives who had not attended a council meeting in centuries had traveled across the galaxy to be present. The atmosphere crackled with tension and fear, and something that felt dangerously close to panic. Supreme Arbiter Causenthal called the session to order. His voice lacked its usual confidence. We have summoned Ambassador Vasquez to explain humanity's position in full detail. Before she speaks, I remind all representatives that this is a diplomatic session. Whatever we learn, we will respond with the dignity befitting this council. The doors opened. Elena Vasquez entered, but she did not walk alone. Behind her came a procession of humans unlike any the council had seen before. Military officers in crisp uniforms. Scientists carrying holographic displays. Engineers with data tablets. An entire delegation that moved with the precision of people who had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. Elena took her place at the central circle. Her team spread out behind her, a wall of human capability that suddenly seemed much larger than its numbers suggested. "The Council has questions," she said. "I am here to answer them. But first, I would like to show you something." She gestured, and the chamber's display systems activated. But the images did not come from Council technology. They came from human systems that had somehow interfaced with the ancient machines without permission. The Council saw Earth, not as they had known it from surveillance reports, but as humans knew it. Cities glittering at night like scattered jewels. Forests stretching across continents. Oceans that shifted from blue to green to silver under changing skies. Children playing in parks. Artists painting murals on walls. Musicians filling streets with sound. "This is what we protect," Elena said. "This is why we built the Bastion network. Not because we wanted power over you, but because we wanted to ensure that no matter what you decided, our home would survive." The images shifted. Now they showed history. Human history. Wars and plagues and disasters. Empires rising and falling. Slavery and liberation. Genocide and reconciliation. The worst of humanity and the best, laid bare before beings who had dismissed them as primitive. "We know what we are," Elena continued. "We are young. We are emotional. We make terrible mistakes. We hurt each other in ways that shame us. But we also heal. We also grow. We also rise from every disaster stronger than before." "This is irrelevant," Councillor Rethsoma interrupted. "We are not here for a history lesson. We are here to discuss the threat you pose to galactic stability." "There is no threat," Elena said. "There never was. That is what I am trying to show you." She brought up new displays. Technical specifications. Fleet compositions. Weapon capabilities. The full scope of human military power, revealed without hesitation or shame. The numbers were staggering. The Council had 12,000 warships capable of interstellar combat. Humanity had 47,000. The Council's most powerful weapons could destroy a planet. Human weapons could destroy a star. "You hid this from us," Cossenthal said, his voice barely a whisper. "We developed it quietly," Elena corrected. "We hid nothing. You simply never asked. You looked at our short lives and assumed we could not achieve what longer-lived species achieved. You were wrong." "How?" demanded Rethvaner, the high taxonomist. "How could you develop such technology in mere decades?" Elena smiled, and there was no mockery in it. Only a strange kind of pride. "Because we do not have time to wait. Your species lives for 10,000 years. You can afford to perfect the technology over centuries. We cannot. We innovate or we die. We take risks that you would never consider because our entire lives are a risk. Every generation of humans has to prove itself, has to build, has to create, or everything we made will crumble." She stepped forward, her voice rising with passion she rarely allowed herself to show. "You call our short lives a weakness. They are our greatest strength. Every human alive knows that their time is limited. Every human alive works as if tomorrow might be their last day. We do not have the luxury of patience. We burn bright because we have no other choice." The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the Council was truly seeing humanity. Not as a primitive species to be classified and dismissed, but as something entirely different. Something they had never imagined. "You could have conquered us," Denvast said from his high seat. His ancient voice trembled with something that might have been awe. "With this power, you could have swept through the galaxy. Why did you not?" Elena turned to face the old Varathi. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "Because conquest is not what we want. It never was. She brought up one final display. A document written in every language of every species in the galaxy. The words glowed in the air above her. When we first studied your civilization, we saw many things. Power, achievement, order, but we also saw something else. We saw species living in fear of each other. We saw classification systems that told beings they were worth less than others because of how they were born. We saw a galaxy divided into those who rule and those who serve. Her eyes swept across the chamber. We did not want to replace you at the top of that system. We wanted to end the system entirely. Murmurs swept through the representatives. This was not what they had expected. They had prepared for threats, for demands, for the ambitions of a rising power. They had not prepared for this. This document, Elena continued, is a draft charter for a new form of galactic cooperation. We call it the Open Compact. Its core principle is simple. No species is inherently greater or lesser than any other. Status is earned through action, through contribution, through how you treat those weaker than yourself. You would tear down 11 million years of order, Cossenthal said. I would replace it with something better. Elena's voice was calm but unyielding. Your order kept peace between the powerful by sacrificing the dignity of the weak. That is not order. That is tyranny with good manners. And if we refuse? Rethsoma demanded. If we reject your compact and your idealism, then nothing changes. Humanity withdraws. We seal our borders. We live in our bastion network, and you continue as you always have. Elena paused. But I wonder how long your order will last once the rest of the galaxy sees what is possible. She gestured, and the display showed something new. Messages. Thousands of messages from species across the galaxy. Lesser species. Marginalized cultures. Beings who had been told their whole existence that they were not good enough. They were asking about the Open Compact. They were asking if humanity would accept them. They were asking if there was truly a place where they could be equal. You see, Elena said quietly, we are not the only ones who dream of something better. We are simply the first with the power to make it real. The council erupted. Representatives shouted at each other. Ancient alliances fractured in real time as species turned on each other, blaming and accusing. Some demanded that humanity be destroyed immediately. Others argued for negotiation. Still others called for the council itself to reform. Through it all, Elena stood calm at the center. She had done what she came to do. She had planted a seed. Now she would see if the galaxy had the courage to let it grow. Plenvast's voice cut through the chaos. Silence. The chamber fell still. Even the Supreme Arbiter did not challenge the eldest being in the room. I have watched civilizations rise and fall for 9 billion years, Plenvast said. I have seen empires that stretched across galaxies crumble to nothing. I have seen species ascend to godhood and others destroy themselves in madness. And in all that time, I have learned one truth. He leaned forward, his ancient eyes fixed on Elena. Change comes whether we will it or not. The only choice we have is whether to guide it or be swept away by it. He turned to face the council. These humans offer us a chance to guide it, to build something new instead of watching everything we made collapse under its own weight. I say we take that chance. You would have us surrender to a species barely 100 years old. Rethsoma demanded. I would have us listen to a species wise enough to offer partnership instead of demanding submission. Plenvast's voice hardened. They could destroy us. They chose not to. They could conquer us. They offered equality instead. When was the last time any of us showed such restraint? No one answered. The question hung in the air, heavy with implications none of them wanted to face. Elena stepped forward one last time. You have 6 months. In 6 months, humanity will either begin working with a reformed galactic order, or we will seal our borders forever. The choice is yours." She turned and walked toward the door, her delegation following in perfect formation. At the threshold, she paused. "We came to you 40 years ago with hope. You answered with contempt, but we are still here, still offering you a chance. That is who we are. That is what you called lesser." The door closed behind her. The council sat in silence, surrounded by the weight of 11 million years, and wondered if they had the courage to let it go. 6 months. The future of the galaxy would be decided in 6 months. And for the first time in recorded history, the decision was not in the council's hands alone. The galaxy began to fracture. Within 3 weeks of Elena's ultimatum, the first formal requests arrived at the council. The Thesan Republic, a small civilization of aquatic beings who had been classified as lesser for 200,000 years, announced their intention to withdraw from council jurisdiction and seek membership in humanity's open compact. The council denied their request. Under galactic law, no species could leave without majority approval. The Thesan had no voice in that vote. "You cannot hold us prisoner," the Thesan ambassador said, her gills flaring with suppressed rage. "We never agreed to this arrangement. It was imposed on us before we had the power to resist." "The law is the law," Councillor Rethsoma replied. "It applies to all species equally. It was written by the powerful for the benefit of the powerful. That is not equality. That is control." The Thesan were not alone. 2 more species petitioned for withdrawal the following week. Then 5 more. Then 12. The trickle became a flood as lesser species across the galaxy saw their chance to escape a system that had never served them. The council tried to maintain order. They threatened sanctions. They deployed diplomatic missions. They reminded everyone of the stability the current system provided, the peace that had lasted for millions of years. But the words rang hollow now. Everyone had seen the human displays. Everyone had seen the choice humanity had made when they held overwhelming power. They could have demanded submission. They had offered partnership. Ambassador Vasquez established a temporary diplomatic station on the border of human space. Every day, representatives from different species made the journey to speak with her. Some came to ask about the open compact. Others came simply to see if the stories were true. "Is it real?" asked the Crush envoy, a being of living flame who had traveled 3 months to reach the station. "Do you truly offer equality to all?" "It is real," Elena assured him. "Any species that joins the compact will have the same voice as any other, including humans. But you are the strongest. How can we trust that you will not simply take control when it suits you?" Elena smiled. She had answered this question many times. Because the compact is designed to prevent any single species from gaining dominance. Decisions require broad consensus. Military power is distributed. Economic systems are balanced. We built it specifically to make tyranny impossible, even for ourselves. Why would you do this? You could rule. We do not want to rule. We want to live in a galaxy where our children do not have to fear being conquered. The best way to achieve that is to create a system where conquest makes no sense for anyone. The Crush envoy was silent for a long moment, flames flickering with thought. Finally, he bowed his head. "My people have been lesser for 800,000 years. We had forgotten what hope felt like. You have reminded us." Stories like this spread across the galaxy. Each one weakened the Council's grip. Each one strengthened the movement towards something new. But not everyone accepted the change peacefully. The Rithani Consortium had been the loudest voice calling for humanity's lesser classification. They had the most to lose from a new order where their advantages of age and established power meant nothing. As the months passed and their influence crumbled, their leaders grew desperate. The attack came without warning. A human supply convoy was traveling through neutral space, carrying medical supplies to a species suffering from a plague that Rithani pharmaceutical companies had refused to treat. It was a mercy mission, unarmed, clearly marked with humanitarian symbols. The Rithani fleet intercepted them anyway. "These supplies are galactic resources," the Rithani commander announced. "Under Council law, they must be distributed through proper channels. You will surrender them immediately." The convoy commander, a young woman named Sarah Chun, responded calmly. "These supplies were manufactured by humans, using human materials in human space. They are not subject to Council law. You are lesser. You have no right to trade without Council approval. We are not trading. We are giving aid freely to those who need it. Then you are disrupting galactic order. Surrender, or we will take the supplies by force." Sarah looked at her crew. They were not soldiers. They were doctors, engineers, aid workers who had volunteered to help strangers in need. They had no weapons. They could not fight. But they had something else. "Very well," Sarah said. "If you insist on taking these supplies by force, we will not resist. But I want you to know that we are broadcasting this entire encounter on every frequency we can reach. Every species in the galaxy will see what the Rithani Consortium considers appropriate behavior." The Rithani commander hesitated. "You are bluffing. Check your sensors." He did. The convoy had been broadcasting since the moment of interception. Every word, every image, every moment of Rithani warships threatening unarmed humanitarian workers was being transmitted across the galaxy in real time. "This changes nothing," the commander snarled, but his voice had lost its confidence. "It changes everything," Sarah replied. "You can take our supplies. You can destroy our ships. But you cannot stop the galaxy from seeing who you really are." The Rithani took the supplies. They did not destroy the convoy. Perhaps they feared the response, or perhaps some small part of them felt shame. Either way, it did not matter. The broadcast had been seen by billions. The image of Rithani warships surrounding unarmed humanitarian vessels became the symbol of everything wrong with the old order. Species that had been undecided suddenly found their choice clear. Within a week, 47 species had formally requested membership in the Open Compact. The Council could not deny them all. The system was breaking down. Kozenthal called an emergency session. The chamber was half empty now. Many representatives had stopped attending, seeing no point in participating in an institution that was clearly dying. "We must act decisively," Councillor Rethsoma urged. "If we do not crush this rebellion now, we will lose everything. How do you propose to crush it?" Thenvast asked. "The humans have more ships than we do, better weapons, and now they have the support of half the lesser species in the galaxy. Then we make an example of someone. Destroy a few human colonies. Show them that their power has limits. And if they respond in kind? If they destroy our colonies?" Rethsoma's compound eyes glittered with fury. They would not dare. Would they not? They built their bastion network to survive exactly such a war. They prepared for us to attack. They expected it. Do you truly believe they have no plan for retaliation? The chamber fell silent. It was one thing to talk about decisive action. It was another to face the reality that such action might be met with overwhelming response. "There is another option," said a voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned. Ambassador Vasquez stood in the doorway. She had not been summoned. She had not asked permission. She had simply arrived, as if she belonged there. "How did you get in here?" Kosenthal demanded. "Your security systems are not as secure as you believe." Elena walked calmly to the central floor. "But I did not come to embarrass you. I came to offer you a way out. We do not need your mercy," Rasoma spat. This is not mercy. This is practicality. Elena's voice was steady and clear. The council is failing. Everyone can see it. You can fight to preserve it and lose everything, or you can help us build something better. What would you have us do? Cosintho asked. Vote to dissolve the council. Endorse the open compact. Help us create a new galactic assembly where every species has equal voice. That is surrender. That is survival. Elena stepped closer to the Supreme Arbiter. You have ruled for 800 years. You have seen the galaxy at peace. Do you truly believe that peace will continue if you try to hold power by force? Do you truly believe the lesser species will accept your authority after what the Rathani did? Cossenthal was silent for a long moment. His 6 eyes studied the human before him. Small, brief, mortal, and somehow, impossibly, offering him a future he had not imagined. You would let us remain? He finally asked. Even after everything we have done? Yes, Elena said simply, because that is what the compact is about. Not punishment for the past. Partnership for the future. She stepped back and addressed the entire chamber. You have 1 month. 1 month to decide whether you will be part of what comes next, or whether you will be remembered as the ones who stood in the way of progress. She turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she paused one last time. We are not your enemies. We never were. We only wanted to be your equals. That offer still stands. The door closed behind her. The council sat in the ruins of their power, surrounded by the ghosts of 11 million years, and wondered if they had the wisdom to accept what was being offered. Some did, some did not. But the tide had turned. The galaxy was changing, and nothing they did could stop it now. The vote came on a quiet morning. No fanfare, no grand speeches. Just 400 species casting their judgment on 11 million years of history. The motion to dissolve the Galactic Council and establish a new Galactic Assembly passed by a margin of 63%. It was not unanimous. It did not need to be. The old order ended not with a bang, but with the quiet acceptance that it had already been over for months. Ambassador Elena Vasquez watched the final count from the viewing gallery. She had not spoken during the proceedings. She had done her part. Now it was time for others to carry the work forward. Thenvast found her there after the session ended. The ancient Varathi moved slowly, his massive stone body creaking with every step. 9 billion years of existence left marks that never fully healed. You do not celebrate, he observed. There is nothing to celebrate, Elena said. This is just the beginning. Building something is always harder than tearing something down. Wise words for one so young. Elena smiled. I am 61 years old. By human standards, I am getting close to the end. And yet, you work as if you will live forever. I work as if I will die tomorrow. That is different. Thenvast settled beside her, his ancient eyes fixed on the stars beyond the viewing window. I have watched your species carefully these past months. I have tried to understand how beings with such brief lives could accomplish what you have accomplished. And what did you conclude? That your mortality is your greatest gift. The old Varathi's voice was soft with wonder. You know that everything ends. You have always known. And so you treat every moment as precious, every achievement as urgent, every connection as vital. He turned to look at her directly. We who live forever forget these truths. We have time to waste, so we waste it. We have eternity to change, so we never change. You have neither luxury. You must be better today, because you may not have tomorrow. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and placed her small hand against the ancient stone of his arm. You are changing now, she said. You voted for dissolution. You supported the compact. After 9 billion years, You chose something new. Perhaps your urgency is contagious. Perhaps you were always capable of it. You just needed a reason. 6 months later, the Galactic Assembly held its first formal session. The Grand Convocation Hall had been rebuilt. The rising seats were gone, replaced by a circular arrangement where every representative sat at the same level. No high seats. No positions of honor. Just a gathering of equals. Elena had retired from diplomatic service by then. Her successor, a young man named Marcus Webb, had taken her place. She watched the inauguration ceremony from a quiet corner of the gallery, surrounded by other former officials who had given their lives to this moment. The new charter was read aloud. Its principles were simple. No species would be classified by biology. Status would be earned through contribution. Disputes would be settled by consensus. Military power would be shared. No one would be called lesser again. When the reading was complete, representatives from species that have been marginalized for millions of years rose to speak. Their voices shook with emotions that most of them had never allowed themselves to feel: hope, pride, belonging. A Thesan diplomat, her gills rippling with barely contained joy, spoke of what this day meant to her people. The Kresh envoy, his flames burning brighter than ever before, described the future his children would inherit. Even the Rithani, humbled by their actions and grateful for the mercy shown to them, pledged to be better than they had been. Elena listened to all of it. She did not cry. She had never been one for tears. But something loosened in her chest, some tension she had carried for so long that she had forgotten it was there. It was done. Not finished. Never finished. But begun. After the ceremony, she slipped away from the crowds and found a quiet observation deck overlooking the space station. Ships from 100 species moved past, their lights blinking against the darkness. A new civilization taking its first steps. She heard footsteps behind her. When she turned, she saw a young girl, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, with dark hair and curious eyes. The child wore the uniform of a diplomatic family, one of the first generation to be born into this new galaxy. "Are you Ambassador Vasquez?" the girl asked. "I used to be," Elena said. "Now I'm just Elena. My mother says you changed everything. She says the galaxy is different because of you." Elena knelt down to meet the child's eyes. "The galaxy is different because a lot of people decided to be brave. I was just one of them. But you started it. You told them we were not lesser." "No." Elena shook her head gently. "We were never lesser. I just made sure they could not pretend otherwise anymore." The girl considered this for a moment. Then she asked the question that Elena had been waiting for, without knowing she was waiting. What was the old galaxy like? Before everything changed? Elena thought about how to answer. She thought about the council chamber and the weight of contempt in the air. She thought about the fear she had hidden every day for 40 years, the doubt that maybe they would never see humans as worthy. She thought about the moment she had watched the classification vote and known that her people's future would be shaped by beings who did not care if they lived or died. It was a lesson, she finally said. The old galaxy was a lesson in what happens when we let others tell us what we are worth. And we learned from it. The girl nodded, accepting this with the easy wisdom of childhood. "I am glad I did not have to learn that lesson." "So am I," Elena said. "So am I." The child's mother called from down the corridor. The girl waved goodbye and ran off, her footsteps echoing in the metal halls. Elena watched her go, this daughter of a new age, this child who would never know what it meant to be called lesser. That was the victory. Not the fleets or the treaties or the political maneuvering. This, a child who could dream without limits. Elena turned back to the window. The stars spread out before her, countless and eternal. Somewhere out there, human colonies were growing. Human children were being born. Human dreams were taking shapes that she could not imagine. She was 63 years old. Her body was beginning to fail in the small ways that bodies do. She would not see the full flowering of what they had built. No human would. That was the nature of their gift. But she had seen enough. She had seen fear turn to hope. She had seen contempt turn to respect. She had seen a galaxy look at humanity and finally understand that strength was not measured in years lived, but in what you did with the time you had. A soft chime sounded. Her shuttle was ready. It was time to go home, to Earth, to rest at last. She took one final look at the stars. "We did it," she whispered. "We showed them who we are." The stars did not answer. They never did. But Elena Vasquez smiled anyway, because she knew the truth that the ancient council had never understood. Humanity's power had never been in their ships or their weapons. It had been in their refusal to accept that they were less than anyone. It had been in their insistence on building something better, even when the whole galaxy told them they could not. They had been called lesser. They had answered by lifting everyone up. That was humanity's gift to the stars. And the stars, at last, had accepted it. Elena walked toward her shuttle, toward home, toward rest. Behind her, the new galaxy took its first breaths. Ahead of her, the future stretched out like an open hand, waiting to be filled. It was a good way to end. It was an even better way to begin.